What's up, college football world? It's Saturday. It's bright and early. We're out here for another episode of GamedayU. I'm your host, Sam Brown, joined by my all-star cast, Colin Kennedy, Madeline Roberts, Josh Calloway. Guys, how are we doing today?
There's football happening, so I'm happy.
Not good football.
Not good football, but there is football that is happening.
Any football is good football. Hey, we're warm inside today, so I'm happy.
Oh, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Where did the season go? That's
It's
the last
not.
home game already.
Pretty quick.
We're already almost to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
Playoff time's coming
Potentially.
around.
Yeah.
Potentially.
2 regular season games left, including today, last home game. It's weird. Earlier this week, I just sat there and was like, where did this season go? And we knew it would go by fast. And it
First game was
totally
76 days ago. 76. That's
Okay,
almost
do you
100
guys want me to
days.
cry? I mean, we're trying to do television,
We're
everybody.
old.
Wouldn't it be?
Don't cry,
Wouldn't it be
Colin.
like 77? Because it's Saturday, so it's not divisible by 7.
Let's
You know what
not
I'm saying?
start off with
Whatever,
tears
I
and
guess
math.
you're
That's just a show that I don't want to start with.
This isn't even worth it at this point. We're going to go right in. Let's start talking about what happened last week. Bedlam, very interesting game. 48-47, OU comes out on top, but lots of questions after this game. Colin, what stood out to you from the game?
Oh, they call it Bedlam for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. That was a hot mess of a football game. It just wasn't good football, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it was overall concerning what went on. And honestly, Madeline's going to get into this a little bit more, but the storyline that came out of it was the OU defense. And what I'm going to show you at home is a little video that I have created to show you exactly why they're so bad. Take a look at it because we're going to break down the scheme of this defense. Essentially, what this defense is doing is a bend but don't break. The corner to the boundary is essentially responsible for their deep third. Then the safeties have a sort of an interchangeable role. One safety drops back for the middle third, the other one flies to the flat. As you might see in that video, Robert Barnes did that exact thing. And then the far corner on the field, he's responsible for that deep third. But what does this tell us? That tells us that there are 3 people going about 20 yards down the field, and they expect everything in front of them. What does that open up? Easy completions short to the intermediate routes. And essentially what this defense is trying to prevent is the 60-yard play. But what they don't really recognize and what Oklahoma State exposed is that 6 10-yard plays is the equivalent of 1 60-yard play. And that's why, at the end of the day, this defense is so bad. Yes, I can do a little bit of math still. At the end of the day, I don't think the Sooners can because this defense was exposed, period. When athletes get the ball in their hands, this Oklahoma State offense was able to just get rid of it, and guys like Tyron Johnson and Tylan Wallace just made plays. And they made Taylor Cornelius look like one of the best quarterbacks in the history of football. And I can tell you right now, this stat right here should be concerning because even though he looked like one of the best in the history of college football, he was, listen to this, he was the best quarterback in the history of Owen Field. In the long-range history of Owen Field's existence. Think of all the quarterbacks, not just at OU, that have played on that field, okay? Every quarterback to ever put a foot on Owen Field, Taylor Cornelius' 501 yards put him in the record books as the best passing performance of all time in that stadium.
And that's the funny thing is that he underthrew like several throws.
So he missed like 8
The 2-point
passes.
conversion was a terrible pass.
Exactly.
Taylor Cornelius could have gone for 600 yards.
Yes.
Easily.
He missed some wide open guys.
Yeah, but as you saw, he had those opportunities, like you saw in that video, to just make the easy completion. And at the end of the day, this Sooner defense needs to make some adjustments very quickly because if they continue to follow this bend but don't break method, they will break and they might be out of a Big 12 title game appearance.
I was going to say, Colin, last week on the show, I kind of predicted this, that the OU defense would cause this to happen. Taylor Corndog Cornelius looked more like Taylor Heisman Cornelius in that game.
Taylor Hot Dog.
He played horrible.
Would he be holding a corn dog or a football?
Can we
Josh
take a
says
step back?
he
threw
played
500
horrible.
yards, but he played like garbage.
didn't play
Any
well.
quarterback that was competent
He had
would have thrown 500 yards in
a
that
few
game.
passes that weren't good. They weren't on target
A few thousand.
by any means. But he still threw for 500 yards. That's what you were kind of touching on, Colin. I mean, when you leave these guys wide open, you leave them space, especially guys like Johnson and Wallace who can make really good plays. Even if you have a quarterback who, isn't that good, it makes him look like a Heisman contender. It makes him throw for 500 plus yards. So that was a problem for me with the defense. And also, I mean, all season we've said, yeah, OU, the secondary's not very good, but they can stop guys in the run game. They're pretty good at that. And yeah, they held Justice Hill to 35 yards, but Chuba Hubbard had 104 yards, 3 touchdowns. So even then, they couldn't really stop him. And so when you look at, okay, we can stop the run, especially against teams with, that really rely on their running backs. They didn't really even do that in this game, and that's why part of the reason why they almost lost. When you can't, control the passing game or the running game, you don't have a good chance of winning, and that's why they, again, pulled out the game by 1 point.
Yeah, I would even support Madeline's point by saying you can make the counter argument of, well, Oklahoma State had unbelievable athletes, right? Chuba Hubbard is an excellent athlete. Tyron Johnson, Tylan Wallace are two of the best receivers in the conference, maybe in the country. But my counter to that would be, number one, what Josh will say all the time, Cornelius is not a good quarterback, and that was pretty evident by the number of throws that he missed. But even then, you look at the run game, yes, Hubbard had a nice day, but that offensive line for Oklahoma State for the whole season has been mediocre at best.
Yeah.
But they dominated
They
the
own
line of scrimmage.
yeah.
I mean, there was not almost any penetration the entire football game, and that was extremely concerning, and that's what led to those numbers.
Yeah, the defense is bad. Okay, we know that the defense
Yes.
is bad, but I'm more just like, this offense is the best offense I've ever seen in my life.
They won the game.
They won the game again like they always do. This offense doesn't have, they didn't even play that great against in Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
They had some stops second half. They had a chance to kind of pull away, and they never did. They still scored 48 points and won the game. And I kind of feel like, as bad as defense is, that they can just beat anybody because they can just outscore whoever they play. Joel Klatt had a great stat that I saw yesterday.
Yes, I was going to bring this up.
Since Lincoln Riley got to Norman, they've given up 45.7 times. They've won 5 of the games that they've given up 45 points. So that's the
5 and
country
2.
on average wins 6% of the time when you give up 45 points. That's
would be
71% of the the time when
That's
Lincoln's here.
insane.
It does not matter if the defense is really bad. Basically, is how I feel, because this offense is the best offense I've ever seen. Kyler Murray's having an unbelievable year. He probably should win the Heisman. He's not going to, but he probably should. It's more important to his team, and his numbers are ridiculous. They're running. They ran for over 300 yards each of the last 3 weeks. That was the thing we said at the beginning. Once Rodney went down, can they run the ball? Yeah, they can run the ball. Kenny Brooks and Trey Sermon are running all over the place. They are unbelievably unstoppable.
I think
and I don't know if the defense even being bad matters.
I think the key with that rushing game, kind of touching on that, is the fact that they found the perfect kind of balance between Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks over the last month, to where neither of them is really getting much of a workload. You saw in the last game, Trey Sermon 16 carries, Kennedy Brooks 15.
Them being close to the same, I think, is good.
Yeah, it's about the same. You're seeing a lot of rotation in the backfield, and that's creating a lot of opportunities for both of them because it's hard for defenses to have to adjust to certain players. And then you've got Kyler Murray who could just run for
he can run
20
all over the
yards
place as
and
well.
on
See,
any given
you say though the
play.
defense is unstoppable. I mean, clearly that's not true. It's not like they've scored every time, every possession they've had in the Oklahoma State game in the third quarter, especially. They had a couple 3-and-out
That's what I'm saying. Like they played
They
like
That's the
their
thing,
worst
too,
game.
yeah.
They still scored 48 and won when they gave up
But they won
5 billion yards.
I mean, you can't expect every team you play to, have a guy like Taylor Cornelius, a quarterback, who probably, like Sam said, would have had more yards, more touchdowns if he was a bit more accurate of a passer. I mean, if you're giving up 47 points, you can't expect to score 48 every time, even if you have a great offense.
think
because
you
you're
can.
not scoring. You're not scoring every time. And it seemed especially like in Bedlam and in some other games this past season, when the OU defense does usually come out at halftime, they've made some adjustments under Ruffin McNeil, I think better than under Mike Stoops. You come out, you get stops, and suddenly the offense is having a little bit of trouble scoring because, the opposing team has made some defensive adjustments as well. And so, yeah, I mean, you can live your life trying to, outscore your opponent by 1 point every game. And yeah, that's going to win you some games. But like we've seen against Texas, that doesn't always work. Sometimes your offense makes some mistakes and your defense can't make up for them.
And here's why a change will not be recognized like that. Is because we talk about this offense can win games, and well, it can only survive so much. I read something the other day that right now Oklahoma's #1 in total yards per play, right?
Yeah,
By a
just
lot.
on the side.
I
by
had
a-
that stat actually. I meant to say
The
that.
By a
gap-
big
They're
margin.
almost 2 yards more
Yeah.
than this closest
The
team.
gap from them to Alabama at #2 is the equivalent from Alabama to the 15th place team in those rankings. Think about that.
And then-
from 1 to 2 is from 2 to 15. That's why they can win those games, but it also is telling if they're not playing their best football on offense and they're pulling off these numbers, if they can even be a little bit better and the defense can just get it figured out slightly, this team could be unstoppable. But right now,
Yeah.
they're just not.
And you talk about those yards per play and the yards per game. OU is near the bottom of the country in terms of plays per game. They run
very low.
they run about 65 plays a game. That's lower than a lot of teams, and they're still tops of the country in yards and top of the country in points. Really, it's a fun time to be a Sooner fan, regardless of
Yeah.
where the defense is at. It's a fun time to
But
watch.
they still have a loss. So this formula obviously isn't perfect because they lost to a team that's not even that good. So you can't just keep relying on that. I don't know why, if you're a Sooner fan, I don't know why you're like, yeah, I'm happy with how it's going. your team lost. So you shouldn't be happy.
They
You
lost
should
one game.
recognize
I mean, maybe it's
that you
flawed.
need to change.
I don't think Sooner fans are happy.
Maybe it's flawed logic, but I feel like Oklahoma State scores 47 points, puts up 1,000 yards. Texas Tech does it. Texas, they almost won that Texas game, even how poorly they played. What more can they do? How much worse can they possibly play than allowing the other team to score almost every time? And they still win. It's like, where do you go from there? So it's like,
Where do you go from there? You make a couple stops on defense for first.
I'm saying they're not getting stops at all, and they're still winning. So why would I not expect them to beat anybody? How can anybody score more than every
the
time?
teams they
Because
played
yeah,
are
look at the teams they
ranked
played. Good teams, really
But
good
they're already
teams aren't
scoring
gonna
every time. There's
but
a
good teams-
finite amount of
good
possessions
teams
in the
aren't going to
game.
make those mistakes. If you look at Oklahoma State, you're going to tell me that Taylor Cornelius on the road is more of a threat than Will Greer at home, and that Will Greer at home isn't going to score on every play, and that they're going to score more. Oklahoma State still punted the ball a couple times.
Sam gets it.
I guarantee
He
West Virginia
gets
does
me.
not score more than 47 points in that game.
That's kind of a wait and see.
Someone
I
have
guess
a
we'll have to
pen?
wait. Yeah, dude,
I don't have
And I bet you Will
47.
Greer does not throw for over 500 yards in that game too. I'm saying they already have played pretty much as bad as you can, and they still win because the offense is unbelievable.
They have
That's
a
what
loss,
I'm saying.
but
The offense could be even
They
better,
lost
too.
one game, they played horrible, and they almost pulled it out.
Yeah.
And everybody in the country except for Bama and Clemson lose
still
games.
took an L. I'm probably not going to make the college football playoff
All right,
because
40,
of that.
Yeah.
47 points, Josh. We're going to have to hold you to that for next week.
Guaranteed. I'm
All
more
right.
confident in the
All
500
right,
yards
let's
thing.
watch it happen. That's going to do it for us for our first block. When we come back, we're going to talk about the game today, OU Kansas. Plus, we're going to take a look in Sooner history. Spencer Royce has got another package for us. You're going to want to stick around.
November 17th, 2001. The Oklahoma Sooners were ranked third in the nation as they traveled to Lubbock for a game with Texas Tech. The OU run defense was awesome in this one, allowing just 7 rushing yards to the Red Raiders. Yeah, 7. That same defense also picked off Tech twice. The quarterback on the bad end of those interceptions was none other than Cliff Kingsbury, who's their current head coach. Nate Hibble threw 50 total passes, ended up having 3 of them be touchdowns to go along with his 274 yards through the air. Chris Toney, Antoine Savage, and Mark Clayton all caught 1 touchdown each, and Tim Duncan even booted in 3 field goals of his own. The Sooners won by a final score of 30-13 and moved to 10-1 on the season, a record the Sooners will achieve today if they take down the Kansas Jayhawks later tonight. When a football program is this dominant, I guess seasons with double-digit wins reoccur pretty often, and blowout wins such as this one against Texas Tech happen seemingly all the time. But regardless of those things being very common, November 17th, 2001 was still another day to remember in Sooner football history.
All right, good stuff, Spencer. Thank you for that. We're back here live for Game Day U. Colin, Madeline, Josh.
Hello.
We're talking Oklahoma. We're talking Kansas. Big matchup today for Oklahoma. Senior night here at the Palace on the Prairie, guys. What's the storyline you're looking for heading into today, Josh?
I don't know. It's Kansas. I mean, it's kind of one of those games, while Kansas is not good, they're still Kansas. They have won 3 games this year. They're better than they've been, and they could have won that game
That's
last
really
week.
saying a lot.
They're better than they've
It's like
been.
It's like the Browns.
Yeah,
it's like
their
3
defense
wins is a
isn't
successful
horrible,
season.
So I feel like this is kind of a game. It's one of those games, you got West Virginia next week on a short week. You probably want to just get the starters out of there, let them rest. Don't get caught looking ahead too much, and all of a sudden it's like, now we're in an early hold at Kansas. That's the main thing I'm looking at in this game. Obviously OU should win this by a ton. We all know that. Yeah, I don't know. It's Kansas. It's weird. It's been the entire week. The amount of questions asked at pressers and stuff about Kansas, there's been like 2 total. Like nobody even
that's true.
is talking about this game. It's pretty weird at how little attention Kansas has gotten on Kansas week.
Do you think that could potentially? I mean, probably not because.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was like,
Kansas.
maybe.
Like that can't really come
Trap
back to
game.
bite you.
Yeah.
Even with a slow start. I feel
That's
like
what I was
this
saying. I was
offense
like,
really,
maybe, it seems like, obviously, I don't know. They just answer the questions they're asked, but, you wonder if they just, thinking about West Virginia already or kind of overlooking Kansas. Like, they might come out bored a little bit. Maybe senior night pumps them up a little bit, but you could almost understand why the energy would be a little low for this game.
I don't think they can afford to have the energy low because sometimes you have games like Iowa State last year where it's like, hey, this is an easy win, kind of looking ahead to Texas
Yeah, you
the
never
week
know.
after.
I mean, Kansas still a D1 team. Like I said, they've won 3 games this year, which is, like 70 for any other school. So,
they beat
we'll see.
TCU. TCU gave OU some fits for 5 minutes.
And with West Virginia being on a short
For
week.
that 5-minute stretch in the second quarter.
yeah.
And with
that's
West Virginia being on a
terrifying.
short week, like I mentioned, it being such a huge game, you want to probably get the starters out pretty quick and, just start focusing on that game. But take care of business here first, obviously.
For me, I think the defense's confidence was really shaken against Oklahoma State last week. Specifically the
What
secondary.
confidence could they have had, though? Like,
I mean, obviously, the confidence probably hasn't been that high all season. Especially when you're at home playing a team that's not very good and you almost lose and their quarterback throws over 500 yards. The secondary specifically, I mean, my confidence would be shaken. So I think even though they know, okay, yeah, Kansas, their offense is not exactly stellar. If you get some stops, if you kind of clean up some mistakes, you could take this as maybe a little bit of like a practice game, a little bit of a scrimmage. Just kind of getting back to the basics and just showing, hey, we can do this. We can, stop the run. We can, get pass breakups. We can tackle the quarterback. I mean, I think that's what you need going into what's probably what I have said all year is their toughest game of the season, playing in Morgantown next week. I think it's a good kind of just practice and preparation for that and getting your confidence back a little bit.
I've got a question for you guys, and I think this is just kind of off the top of my head. Which situation do you think was more demoralizing to the defense? Losing to Texas in the Cotton Bowl or allowing 47 points at home to Taylor Cornelius in Oklahoma State? Which one do you think was kind of a bigger blow? Because both of them, when you look at fans and fans' reactions, both of them look pretty demoralizing.
I mean, you got to say the loss. Because even after Oklahoma State, you talk to like Kenneth Murray, he's like, yeah, we didn't play very well, but we won the game. After the Texas game, he could barely even talk. He was just so distraught, So obviously neither are good scenarios, but you got to say the loss is worse and more.
Also,
more
Oklahoma State's
demoralizing.
offense is a lot better than Texas offense is, so that's a lot less. We kind of knew going in they were going to get their points. Probably not to that level.
But yeah, I don't think anyone could have expected 500 yards from Taylor Cornelius. Madeline didn't, and she was all over him last week. So there's no way we could have.
No, and now moving from that football game, I'm going to stir the pot early this morning because I feel like we need a little bit of energy ignition. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. In my opinion, and you'll eventually agree with me, because you're going to say, oh, well, that's not true, but then I'm going to explain my case. I'm going to say, oh, yeah,
Josh,
that guy's
stir
pretty
the
smart.
pot with me. We're stirring the pot.
This game against Kansas is one of the most important football games of the season, period. Why? Not because they're
It's taking
playing
a lot of
The
convincing.
pot has
against
been stirred.
Kansas. It's not because they're playing against Kansas. It's because right now the Sooners are playing against themselves and they're playing against their fan base. This team not only needs one of the best confidence boosts of the season right now, they have to address some serious issues within their football team, and this is the time to do so. There are no other opportunities from here on out to make those adjustments and changes. And on top of that, this team, no one talks about it, has a major depth issue. When you run through it, Houghton is out, so the secondary is thin. Parker is banged up to a degree. They have two available running backs right now with TJ Pledger being banged up. Lincoln Riley said after Bedlam he did not know who his backup center was. You should probably know that, especially when you're heading into West Virginia, a potential Big 12 title game appearance, especially if your redshirt freshman goes down to injury. On top of that, Jalen Redmond is out again, so the defensive line depth has taken another hit, and Neville Gallimore can't stay healthy for a full football game, essentially this entire season, and that trend may continue. This game right here, as Josh mentioned, is an opportunity for the starters to get out early. But what is even more important is this is when they identify who's going to step up in the nitty-gritty of November. Because let's not kid ourselves. You can't throw a guy out there in the middle of Morgantown, West Virginia, and think he's going to play all right when he hasn't had an opportunity to adjust. This is the time to not only make changes, but identify players that are actually going to fill those holes that are left right now that they desperately need to fill. And on top of that, they need a dominant performance, period. I had a lot of people ask me, they held Kansas to a field goal roughly. Can they do it this time around? And I think the widely regarded answer right now would be no.
No.
They cannot hold Kansas to a field
And
goal.
that really says a lot, don't you think?
It says so much, but they need to actually go out and fulfill that and challenge that idea, because if they do not, nothing will have changed following this football game, and they will continue on this downhill slide towards West Virginia, and that could eventually lead to them falling off the cliff and eventually out of the title game. This game right here, while the opponent may not be significant, is so significant for the Sooners themselves, because right now they have some serious issues they need to adjust, and this is the opportunity to do so.
It was kind of bizarre hearing Lincoln Riley say, yeah, if our center goes down, I don't know.
By the way, Drew Samia technically would fill in from what I've heard, and that should be concerning, because then you lose one of your best guards who doesn't snap the football, and he hasn't snapped the football since, I believe, his sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
It's risky
brutal.
to just be like, I'm just praying he doesn't get injured. I mean, that's not the way to roll when you don't have anyone really to fill that position.
This is the 11th OU game this year. I'd say this is the 11th most important game. There's no, you can't get a confidence boost off Kansas. It doesn't matter what you do. You can win this game 70-0, and everybody be like, "What is Kansas?" Like,
After
they're
the
not
win, I'll ask a couple of players.
Well, it doesn't matter what
if
everyone
they-
else says. It matters what this team takes away
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah, and I think-
that's
I
the
guess.
bottom line.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why their confidence would be any different than what it's been. You know, I don't feel like Bedlam. Is your opinion of the defense that much changed after Bedlam as opposed to Texas Tech or early in the season? Like, it's not for me.
What's the old
It's the same.
What's the old saying? Great teams don't just beat the teams that they have to beat; they beat the teams that they should beat. And
Yeah.
this is the opportunity to do
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of that falls on Lincoln Riley. I think he probably coached one of his worst games at OU last week, simply outcoached by Mike Gundy. So it'll be interesting to see if he manages to turn that around. But that's what we have to say about the game. Let's see what the coaches and players have to say about tonight's game against Kansas.
I don't know. Being 9-1's disarray, then that's, we'll define it what it is. Our defenses had a hand in winning all the 9 games that we've had this year. Are there areas that we need to improve? Yes, I'm not looking the other way, but at the same time, we got a team that's very capable of winning a championship right now. So our focus right now is getting better and putting ourselves in position to do that, which we've done up to this point this season.
We know what everybody's saying about the defense. We're not going to add on to that. Everybody knows what we need to get better at, and I think we just got to go back in every week and just get better. That's all you can really do is go back to work.
No matter what type of adversity hits, good or bad, we're never gonna quit. So, that's just the mindset of this defense is that never quit. We'll never quit no matter what. So, no matter what happens in the game, no matter how bad anything is, we will never quit. It will always be fight to the death.
There's a lot of factors that go into that. By Big 12 standards, we're winning a bunch of games, so I know that. So you can put all those stats every which way you want. Go look up the Big 12 records in the last 4 years of teams, and tell me which one you would rather be.
Yeah, it might be my last year, but for me, it's a really another football game. I got to go into it with that mindset, just because I don't like my emotions or whatever getting in the way of how I play, or and it doesn't really affect me too much, but. No, I just got to go out there and play my game, lead the guys to a win.
The things I would say that stand out, offensively, would be the receiver. Sims is, number 11 is electric. And this will be. He's just kind of one of those years in the league where everybody's got one or two really, really good receivers, and Kansas is no different. We've played against this kid for a while, but I think he's phenomenal. And then the young running back, I think, has kind of been a little bit of a difference maker for him too. Kid's really playing well.
You can't look at it like that. They have a very good team and a very good defense. So we got to go out and we got to prepare how we prepare every week, and come out with the mindset of how good can we be as a team.
Very, very important to us to finish this thing off the right way, and we know that we've got a lot of goals in front of us, all of which are still right there at the doorstep for us. Obvious improvements that have got to be made. That we're excited about taking some of those steps this week, but that's really our main focus right now is playing our best against Kansas, correcting some of the mistakes that we need to correct.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, what we need to improve on. Obviously, our pass defense right now is really not up to par where we want it to be. But that takes all of us, and it takes all of us, from the D-line to the linebackers to the DB. So it takes all of us, to really hone in and focus in on our jobs to get better. It's something that we looked at in tape the past couple of days, and something that we are going to get better at, and something that we're taking real ownership of, and going out there, working every day and trying to show improvement. So, getting ready to start a great week of preparation for Kansas this week, and I'm looking forward to having some great improvements on that this week.
You heard it from Lincoln Riley or Kyler Murray himself. You got to go back to work, take it week by week, but it is November. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. You really got to play your best ball. Josh, what stood out to you from the pressers?
I kind of liked, Lincoln getting fired up a little bit because I agree with him. The defense is bad. We all know the defense is bad. But at the end of the day, OU still is winning games. And it's like I said, the offense is so good. And I've said this before, but it's like teams that play garbage offense and great defense get a lot of love, but the teams like OU who play really just historically great offense and bad defense just get constant just hate and just you're bad, you don't belong. And I don't get it, and I feel like he doesn't get it. He's confused. He's upset. I liked him defending his team, saying, "Hey, we're 9-1. If this is horrible, OU football is in a terrible state, and we're 9-1, then man, I'm just the best coach ever lived." Because it is kind of. I understand his frustration, basically, and I like seeing him kind of defend his team a little bit.
Trammell got after him too.
Yeah, he came after him. Why is the defense
With the
so
hard-hitting
bad?
question.
He's like, he said you're in a state of disarray, and Lincoln
He was
like,
a little
well, if the state
fired
of
up
disarray
there.
is 9-1, then I love it.
Yeah, unless you play Kansas State or TCU, you're terrible. And Lincoln's like, can you chill? Like, relax, man.
Yeah, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech are, top 15 offenses in college football, so for what it's worth.
I mean, yeah, you admire Lincoln for standing up for his guys, but he said something that made me laugh. He said, our defense had a hand in all our wins this season.
They have. That's what I was going to say.
Technically,
they literally
technically
have.
if your
they have.
defense is
Not a good
on the
one.
field and you
Not a
get
good one.
Every single one.
if you get a single stop in a game, yes, your defense had a hand in winning.
But like every
But they
single
have
one,
won.
that hand's on
They
fire,
have won
like-
pretty much every game. At least I'd say at least half their games this season, in spite of how bad their defense is. Because like you said, Josh, they have a historically great offense who bails the defense out constantly. The fact that he said that is actually blows my mind.
It's
I
true,
cannot
though,
believe
because
he said
They've
that.
had a hand, not just not a good one.
Every single one of their close wins, the defense has made the play to win the game at the end of the game. All of them. Army, this past week, Texas Tech stopped in the 2-point.
This past week was Taylor
That's- I mean,
Cornelius helping the Sooners
if
out
you
with
think about
a
it- if you
dreadful.
think about
I
it,
mean, they got the stop if it wasn't for the
Yeah,
false
if you
start.
think about it, that's really the reason why they're getting put into positions to make key plays at the end
Right,
of the game
they-
is because you're
they
seeing
shouldn't
the
be in
offense
these
get back
positions
on
anyway.
top by a score.
Well,
And
yeah,
they
I'm
have
not
to
saying
come
he was
up
playing
with
good,
one-
but they have
to
the
come up
defense
with
has
one clutch
always
stop.
all the close games. The defense has been the one to make the play to win the
Don't
game.
you think
All of
having
them.
a better hand in it maybe would be limiting an offense? Or just
Well, obviously,
slowing down
but
an
I'm
offense
just saying,
for like 2 drives?
when the chips are down, they've had to have the play. They've got it from the defense every time in those close games at the end of the situation. So
In an ideal world, you would like to keep teams with 0 points on the board. That's not the case, and what Josh's point is that when they have to make sure that there is a 0 added, they get that stop. And yes, it's not
math's a little
the
funky,
most
I'll take that one.
ideal, but at the end of the day, it's what's getting the job done. And they're going to have to try and figure it out, but eventually they're just going to continue to ride this momentum to where the defense eventually finds a way to stop the opposing team.
I guess like my overarching theme of the day is basically who cares. I'm changing my tune completely. Just who cares? The defense wants to be horrible. I don't care. The offense is going to be the number 1 offense in college football, and you're going to win all the time. I don't
They
care.
have
if
a
the defense
loss.
is bad.
Yeah, not a
They've
lot.
won, lost.
They have a loss.
All right.
Not a lot's
not
going to be
working.
changed.
I didn't realize
on
it had to be
defense this
perfect
year.
to be good.
All right, we'll see how Josh's coaching plans work out for
Well,
now.
I mean, it'd be nice to see it fixed, but if you're going to win all the time, I decided, who are we to complain? If they're winning, it's ridiculous. We're arguing, we're getting upset that they're not winning by enough or in the way we want them to win, and it's kind of silly when you
You
think
got to
about it
win.
like that.
You got to win.
Can't play. I mean, you can't play complete football and win national championships. You got to play complete football to win national championships. Is what I mean.
see.
And then
We'll see.
we'll see how that one goes. That's going to be it for us. We're going to toss it back to the studio. Tori Johnson's going to take things over. We'll be back on later in the show talking about the game, and then we got final words and call-outs later on. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the inside of the studio here at GamedayU. I'm your host, Tori Johnson, and it's time to get started with our 2-minute drill segment. In this segment, I will give you guys a topic, and you'll have a couple minutes to explain your pick and why. So, this week's topic, everybody close your eyes. Imagine the most chaotic scene that you can think of in the college football world, which would rattle the college football rankings. Okay? Carly, you can open your eyes now.
All right.
Tell me what your chaotic scene is.
So I'm going to take you to a mythical land of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Basically, Alabama's playing Auburn next weekend. It's one of the biggest rivalries in the nation. So what happens when Auburn goes and beats Alabama? Alabama, would they get kicked out of the playoffs? Would they just move down in the playoffs? Auburn isn't even ranked right now in the CFP. So it would be really awkward, and it'd just throw everyone off of their game. And then moving into Columbus, Ohio. Then Columbus, Ohio, Ohio State goes and beats Michigan. Also throwing it off. Do they place Ohio above certain teams? Do they kick them out? I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty chaotic. I think Alabama losing would be pretty crazy.
It would,
no matter
especially
what.
against Auburn.
It'll never happen.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's a chaotic scene,
It is pretty chaotic.
and
That's-
it's
that's it.
imagination, so
Trying to get
it doesn't
there.
have to be reality. Matt, what do you got? What's your chaotic scene?
I saw a world not much different from our own, except in that world, the final spot in the 2018 college football playoff goes to Washington State. Here's how it happens. After dominating Washington in the Apple Cup, the Cougars win big over Utah in the Pac-12 title game. Mike Leach announces he's hanging it up after the season now that he finally has enough money for a full-scale pirate ship. The next day in Dallas, Oklahoma, coming off a big win against West Virginia, runs into the Wizard of Ames, Matt Campbell, and Iowa State. Brock Purdy and Hakeem Butler torched the OU defense to lead the Cyclones to their first conference title since William Howard Taft left office. Jerry Jones immediately hires Campbell and sends Jason Garrett on a trip to Belize. Over in Atlanta, Alabama steamrolls Georgia to win the SEC title. When asked about his team's performance, Kirby Smart taps his temple and says, "You can't blow a lead if you never have one." Later that evening, Northwestern faces off with Michigan for the Big Ten title. The Wolverines, still having a bit of a hangover after snapping a 6-game losing streak against Ohio State, find themselves in the hole early. Unlike when the two teams met back in September, however, the Wildcats hold the lead and bring home the conference championship. Northwestern students celebrate by rushing the library and doing physics problems until 5 a.m. So, in that situation, you've got pretty much everybody ahead of Washington State losing, coming away with 2 losses. So they are the natural choice for the final spot.
And they might be able to put up some points against Alabama, too. There's no reason why they wouldn't be able to. Minshew's a dog.
That's right. He certainly is.
Well, we actually have some similar things happening in ours. Go ahead and roll that video. I'm going to take you through mine real quick. I only got 2 minutes, right? 2-minute drill?
Yep.
All right,
I'm gonna
roll
cut you
that,
off
roll that
2
video.
minutes.
Let's go. Iowa State is going to beat Texas, eliminate Texas from the Big 12 title game, horns down. OU's going to then lose to West Virginia in their first game, which will eliminate Iowa State from the Big 12 title game. So after all that happens, OU's going to beat West Virginia in their Big 12 title game, making the Big 12 championship sit with 2 losses. Ohio State is going to go right after that, and they're going to beat Michigan the last game of the season, but then lose to a really, really, really weak Northwestern team in the Big Ten title game. And so that means that the Big Ten title winner is going to have 2 losses as well. Washington State's going to win out in a weak Pac-12, just as you said. Alabama's going to crush Georgia in the SEC title game. So the committee is faced with a very, very, very tough question. Do you take Ohio State with 2 losses, one of which was by 30 points to Purdue? Do you take Georgia with 2 losses and a major step back from the last season? Or do you go with Washington State with 1 loss and a Pac-12 title? And I think I'm in agreement with you in that scenario. I'm going to go with Washington State with the 1 loss and just throw that high-powered offense in there and see what can happen.
They're the obvious choice in that situation. I mean, you've never seen a 2-loss team make the playoff. I don't expect that to change.
No, and I think this year with the fact that the gap between, I think, Alabama, Clemson, and the rest of the field is so large that you can't really risk putting a 2-loss team in there, especially when during the season the conferences haven't been as stout like through and through, as opposed to maybe the SEC is the only conference way up there. So you can't put a 2-loss team in the discussion whenever there's been plenty of 1 loss. And I hate to say it, I have to bring it up. There's another team with 0 losses that's only ranked 11th right now. And I just think the fact that you can put a 2-loss team in there is disgusting. But I think if you're going to go with a 2-loss team, I would probably lean Georgia just with strength of schedule and the fact that one of their losses is to a team that I don't think anybody's going to beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, I came up with my own chaotic scene. It's not as crazy as y'all's, but I just thought, okay, if Georgia in their SEC championship beats Alabama, then the playoff committee is faced with just a 2-conference playoff. So that's crazy. Chaos,
insane.
right?
Yeah, I would hate that.
Yeah.
That's why we just gotta
I would definitely hate that.
We got to move
I
to an
hate
18.
the SEC.
Absolutely.
I can't, honestly, I know what's going to happen. Everyone says it's going to happen. Scott Van Pelt said it's not like a matter of when. He's like, it will happen. We just have no idea when. I actually don't know off the top of my head when the contract ends with the 4-team. But once there's an 8-man, I know it's one more football game to have players get injured and like CTE and all that stuff, you know. But I think that you should do it because the fans need it.
The fans need it. That's who matters, right?
Yeah.
Everybody at home.
Yeah, it's a business.
It is, yeah. Okay, well, that wraps up our 2-minute drill. But if you're at home watching on TV and you're about to go to breakfast or brunch with your family, you can still keep up with us on Facebook Live if you just go to OU TV's profile. Be sure to stay tuned in with us because we have a special segment, our 3 and Out segment, up next.
Wish I had food.
Welcome back to Game Day U. I'm Tori Johnson, and I'm back with my analysts, Spencer Royce, Matt Bowling, and Carly Vargas. In this segment, we're going to go 3 and Out, so I will have 3 questions for you guys, and you're going to have to answer and explain. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, think you
I
can
hope
handle
so.
it? Okay, here we go. So my first question, Carly, you can start. What are the odds that the top 3 all finish unbeaten?
I think that it's unlikely, but it is still possible. The only one I really see going unbeaten at this point is Clemson. They have not the best conference. They have a pretty average conference. But Bama, they still have 2 of their toughest games to play against Auburn and in the SEC title, which they'll probably end up playing Georgia, who is one of the top teams in the nation. And so if they go out and they lose to Georgia and Auburn, I doubt it's going to happen both ways, but I can see them definitely losing to at least one of them. And then Clemson, as I said earlier, they have an average conference. I don't see them losing anytime soon. And Notre Dame, if they don't lose today, then I don't see them losing at all. That's as simple as it is.
Gotcha. Well, I hope they lose today. Matt, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you here a little bit, Carly. I actually think the odds of the top 3 winning out are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Alabama right now. Their defense is playing great football. You're talking 9 straight quarters of shutout football.
Yep.
Clemson, their offense showed they can't be slowed down by the cold up at Boston College. They put up over 400 yards. And Notre Dame, I think they're going to pull out the win against Syracuse and take care of business against Southern Cal with a healthy Ian Book. And I'll have more on him later.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll stay tuned. Okay, Spencer, I know that we're going to disagree. I think it's a 31% chance that all 3 stay unbeaten.
I'll check your math on that after
Okay.
the show. I mean, Tori, you're always telling me how humble I am and like how I'm just such a humble person, right? But about 6 weeks ago, I looked in this very camera and I said, I think there's going to be 3, maybe 4 teams that go unbeaten, and I got a lot of hate for it. And 3 of those same teams are still unbeaten, and I think they're going to stay that way. I'm giving it a 100% chance that it happens. Actually, I think that if Notre Dame beats Syracuse today, the odds are 100%. Alabama's not going to lose a game the entire season, college football playoff, whatever. They're not losing a game this year. Clemson plays Duke, South Carolina, and then probably Pittsburgh in the ACC title game, and the ACC is a trash conference. It's atrocious. They're the only good team in the entire conference. I don't care. They're the only good team in there. The Pac-12 is even worse than the ACC, and that's insane. So Clemson has easy victories the rest of the way, and I think they're the only team near the tier that Alabama is currently. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Right, absolutely.
Now, if UCF could just get a shot, we're going to have 4 unbeaten teams in the discussion, which would be awesome. 4 teams, no losses. I mean, that's awesome, right? But no, I still think there's going to be 3 and 100% chance. I don't see any team losing. You got to just go with your gut. And I've been rolling with it the whole year, so I'm going to stick with it.
Someone's got to lose eventually.
And I'm waiting
I
for the
don't
playoff
think
for
it's
that
ever
to happen.
happened that the top 3 have been undefeated going in.
In the very, very short history that is the college football playoff,
Yeah.
it has not yet happened. But nothing happens until it happens.
That's a great
Expect
point.
the
And it's going to
unexpected.
happen.
It is the first time that the top 10 has stayed unchanged going into this
yeah,
week.
a week
So
to
that
week.
that's the first time that's happened. It's happened. So
See? And so we're going to get one more, top 3, undefeated. And that means that 2-3 game is going to be a team gets their first loss of the season in the
Yeah.
playoff, which probably hurts worse to lose then than anywhere else, but it's just how it has to be
assume so.
sometimes.
Okay, well, moving on to our next question. Which player on a top 10 team could have the biggest impact on his team's college football chances in these next few weeks? Carly, who do you think?
I'm staying at home and I am going to the University of Oklahoma with Kyler Murray. Yes, Oklahoma's defense is the biggest issue right now, but if Kyler can have some pretty flawless games and show that he deserves to win that Heisman Trophy, then I think OU has a really good chance of making it into the playoffs, especially if they go undefeated for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. If I was picking, I would pick Kyler Murray too, because OU cannot win without Kyler Murray.
Hey, Kyler knows.
He knows a lot about football.
He does know a lot about football. He's great. But Matt, you got somebody different. Let's hear
I
it.
told you I'd have more.
Oh, yes.
I told you I'd have more on
tuned in.
Ian Book. Here it is. This is my guy. He has almost single-handedly turned around this Notre Dame offense. I mean, you look at the beginning of the season, they looked like the bottom was about to drop out. And then he was named the starter over Brandon Wimbush going into the Wake Forest game. He threw for 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 43 yards, and 3 more touchdowns. He's a dynamic quarterback who's shown he can make big plays in clutch situations. You saw earlier in the season, he ran for the game-sealing touchdown against Northwestern. He also led them back from that early deficit against Pitt. He is the key to Notre Dame's season.
Yeah, he is been phenomenal for them because I wrote off Notre Dame like week 2. I was like, we both talked about it actually. We talked about how trash they were.
Right.
But Ian Book has really stepped up, and I'm glad he's playing today. I think Brian Kelly said if we had to wrap him in bubble wrap, we'd get him out there today, and I couldn't agree more. I'm going to stick in the Big 12, sort of like you did. I'm going to go with a man named Will Greer. Man, you talked about earlier, he has a family. He has a kid.
And a wife.
And he's just out there having fun playing football. He's going to be in the NFL one day. 9th in total passing yards, 31 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. QBR of 84 on the season. He's rocketing up the Heisman boards right now. Look at him giving that fist bump. His team's currently ranked in the top 10, and they haven't finished a season ranked at all since 2011. So this is a big-time opportunity for the Mountaineers, an opportunity they don't get very often. They have a tendency to start off a lot of seasons really hot. Geno Smith did it a couple times, and then they kind of just sputter out towards the end of the season when they play their tougher teams later on. And I think that Will Greer has the opportunity this season to really just push that team and maybe actually end up in the college football playoff if all those pieces fall into place. And it's going to start with him, the man with the family, the man that has a Vine star as a brother, one of the most interesting men in the entire world of college football, Will Greer.
Do you have a man crush?
No, I actually am not a huge fan of him as a person.
Oh, wow.
I just think he has a lot of impact right now.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess he was a good pick for you then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my third question on 3 and out. I kind of talked about this earlier, how my chaotic scene would be Georgia beating Alabama in their conference title game. But number 3, which team do you guys think could pull an upset in their conference title game?
I actually had the same mindset as you, and I picked Georgia over Bama. Bama hasn't had a hard loss yet this season. And I grew up a Bama fan,
not a loss at all.
surprisingly.
Whoa,
So, right,
ew.
roll tide.
Ew.
And so it's kind of surprising that I'm going so far against Alabama, but I really want Oklahoma to make it into the playoffs. But like I said, Alabama hasn't had a hard loss yet. Georgia's got their loss out. And if Bama doesn't lose in the Iron Bowl, Georgia's going to come out and take it like it is. Like Bama, if Bama loses to Auburn, there's no way that Georgia's winning that bowl game or that title game.
Okay, Matt, who's your upset for a title game?
Okay, this is going to seem a little funny right off the bat, but bear with me.
Okay, I better laugh.
My pick for, well, not funny, like weird. My pick for an upset in the conference title game is Oklahoma. I think the Sooners are going to lose to West Virginia in Morgantown, and then they'll meet again a week later in Dallas, where the Sooners will get revenge. Look, these are 2 very, very evenly matched teams. I mean, both of their quarterbacks are Heisman contenders. Both of their leading receivers are Biletnikoff Awards.
And they're small.
Right. However, defense is where I give West Virginia the slight edge. They're allowing about 9 fewer points per game than Oklahoma. They've allowed over 50 fewer first downs and almost 1,000 fewer yards of offense than OU has this season. I think that's going to play a big role in the game in Morgantown, where the Sooners will be going into probably the most hostile environment of the season. But as I said, they're evenly matched. Give Lincoln Riley a week to fix what went wrong in Morgantown, and Bob Bowlesby's worst nightmare will come to life as the Big 12 title game will cost the conference a playoff shot.
Yeah, and obviously OU's defense last year. We thought they were bad last year. Allowed 29 points per game in Big 12 play last year. This year, right now, 33.
That's not good.
So they somehow got worse on defense, but just have faith. Their offense is so phenomenal. My pick, the Pac-12 seemed a little too obvious. Obviously, Washington State has kind of moved out far and ahead of everybody else. But I just think that anything can happen in that conference because that conference is very, very bad. I am going to stick with Northwestern over Michigan or Ohio State. Now, personally, I think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan and get into the Big Ten title game. I think Northwestern could win. They've won 5 of their last 6. They beat Iowa last week. They have a very strong defense, great coach, fan base. Pat Fitzgerald can make his team really work for this fight for this. He's been there a long time. He played there. He is Northwestern football, and I really think he has an opportunity to will them to victory. Michigan's known to choke. And Ohio State is, we know they're not anywhere close to what they were a year ago. They have the talent, they just haven't been as healthy and as coherent as a group. So I think that Northwestern has a good shot to maybe pull a Big Ten upset and keep the Big Ten out of a title game potentially, which is wild. This season's been nothing short of what we could have hoped for. It's been insane.
Absolutely.
But going off of your OU pick, I see, in my scenario, I also had OU losing that first week, right, against West Virginia. And just the fact that I think whenever you play a team back-to-back weeks like that, especially in a sport like football where you can make adjustments even from quarter to quarter, it's going to be really hard for a team to win that game when both teams are so evenly matched 2 times in a row, back-to-back weeks. Because one coach, whenever you're losing, you're thinking about how can I make this better next time. And then if you're a great coach, when you're the team that's on the winning side, you're thinking, what do I change to make sure they never catch up to me? And whenever 2 teams like that are going at it, I don't see a way in which both games are incredible and both games have different winners.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's hard to beat a good team twice, as they say. These are 2 very good teams. I would expect them to split the series.
Yeah. I could not see West Virginia beating OU twice, but I could see them beating OU in Morgantown. My dad told me last night, he said, if I had to bet all the money I had on that game in Morgantown, I would bet on West Virginia. And that's a lifelong OU fan. He's just being real. And I think he's right. I think that OU will go up there, get a little bit humbled, but I don't see West Virginia beating them again in the Big 12 championship in Dallas.
And plus, Dallas, that's a much friendlier environment for Oklahoma, too.
Basically homeland.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It really is.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's hard to pick against OU against a West Virginia team just because of the history that they've had against West Virginia recently. I mean, obviously last time that they were in Morgantown, that snowy game 2 years ago. I was actually at a concert that night. I was checking the game on my phone. I remember just looking at it and I was like, Ray Shremmerd, great concert.
Okay, yeah.
I caught a
Good
t-shirt.
choice. Good choice.
Nice.
Yeah, it was Calvin Klein. Some girl grabbed it and ripped it in half. Didn't even get to wear it one time.
One of my friends.
So I haven't talked to any girl since then.
Okay, well, that makes sense. He took one of my friend's phones at that concert, and so, he took a video and stuff.
And so, anyway, as I was saying, I think it's going to be tough for OU to win, but in the back of my mind, the last time they were in Morgantown on a very cold day, they put up a ton of points, and
They did.
Hollywood put up a ton of yards. And I think that there's a very good chance it happens again, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Carly, what do you think?
With the weather that it's been recently, I don't think that the cold's going to be that big of an issue, especially going up north. It'll be snowy, cold. So I think that snow that we got last week, it'll definitely help improve our chances of what happens in West Virginia.
Well, maybe. Adapted their bodies to the cold. But that actually wraps up our 3 and Out segment. Be sure to stay with us because whenever we come back to me, and we're going to talk about college football rankings.
All right, thanks, Tori. Welcome back, GamedayU. We're back.
Hey, we're back.
Hey, we're back.
We're still
Guess
here.
what? Surprise. Good stuff there from Tori and the
Stealing
rest of
names,
the
Joe.
studio
Yeah.
crew. But we talked about OU Kansas. We talked about this matchup. But let's take a deeper dive into what Kansas does. Josh, what stands out to you when you look at this team?
What Kansas does, they lose. That's what Kansas does. That's their thing. They're the Cleveland Browns of college football. Well, they do have 3 wins this year, which is pretty
That's
impressive.
how many the Browns have. It's perfect. We're on the
That's
same
true.
page.
The Browns actually beat the Falcons. That was lame.
If Baker Mayfield was Kansas' quarterback right now, how many wins would they have?
They would go 12-0.
They would be undefeated.
National title going to Lawrence.
All right.
Peyton Bender's, a solid quarterback, I guess. I would say, average. He's about
56%.
He's
percentage,
about Taylor Cornelius
Not the
level.
best.
I would say. They're about the same. So their receiving core is not especially great. They don't have anybody over 500 yards. So I think this is an opportunity. They've always we've said it before. It's like they've always kind of stopped the run okay, which is kind of weird. Even when they were at their worst, they've always limited the run pretty well. So I imagine they'll limit Puka Williams at least reasonably, and then surely they don't let Peyton Bender go off, but who knows with how poor the secondary's been playing. I would think this is an opportunity for the defense to really play
Peyton
quite
Heisman
well.
Bender.
I would think
Please
this.
don't say
I'm
it.
going to dismantle this.
Please
Matt.
don't start that.
But Madeline
Please,
can roll
no.
this.
I don't.
kinda
We don't have time for
Kansas's
that.
offense basically has no weapons, and they have a quarterback who is basically average. So if the defense gets beat up today, that's pretty disheartening. But I don't think that they will. I think the defense will play okay today, and the offense will score 1 million points like they always do.
Yeah, they could score 1 million points, but Kansas' defense is pretty good.
It
They
won't
are
matter.
75th in the country out of 130. That's not great, and that's in terms of
75th, you're saying they're pretty good?
That's in terms of opponents' points per game. But hey, listen, that is better than 5 of OU's opponents so far this season. 5. That is half of their opponents. Better than Florida Atlantic, who's 96th, UCLA, who's 101st, Baylor, 102nd, Texas Tech, who's 92nd, Oklahoma State, who's 93rd. And hey, that's only 6 places better than Texas, who is 69th right now, TCU 62nd, Kansas State 58th.
I am floored right now.
So those 3 teams are also, so basically those are 8 teams that have this about the same or worse of a defense than Kansas does. Kansas is 4th in FBS with a plus 13 turnover margin. Their defense is good at forcing turnovers. So I mean, OU has obviously, like we've talked about, one of the best offenses in the country, if not the best. They're going to put up points, but hey, we could see some turnovers today.
Sam, I'm pretty bummed because you get to host with us today, and because of some shifting of the puzzle pieces, I could not
Stuff
prepare
happened.
a Collins key players for this week. I know we're all bummed. It's dramatic.
There aren't
I'm so
any.
happy.
How
So-
will we ever
any.
live?
There aren't any.
Emergency.
How will we ever
If there was
live?
any game to not have key players.
Emergency made-up
one.
segment name change right now.
You
We're
wanna use
going
my
to
notes?
Collins Complete Breakdown, brought to you by again Spencer Pondy. Sponsor pending. I'm all over the place.
Spencer's in there.
Yeah, Spencer's in there. See, like this is normally
Here,
Collins key players.
I'll underline
time.
some players for you.
No, I've got this off the top of my head.
There
All right, here we
you
go.
go.
Complete breakdown time.
I
Let's
know
get
who the
into
first
it.
player he's going to talk about is. I already know it.
Well, we can go into the guy that you guys like to talk about a lot, Peyton Bender. Flat out,
It's a
this
cool
guy.
name.
Yes, Peyton Bender is
So is
really
Puka.
good. And coming in from junior college, obviously, David Beatty had a lot of high hopes for this kid. And he thought that he would potentially be the quarterback that gets the Jayhawk team over the hump. Flat out, this guy has not been what they had hoped for at all. And he is the definition of inconsistent. This guy sometimes will throw for a flat 50% completion, and it'll be a good day for him. This offense goes as he goes. If he can actually get the ball out and make some effective plays, they have a chance. But when he's off, it's flat out bad to watch. And if he is that kind of Peyton Bender, they don't have much of a chance at all to even put up points. At the end of the day, regardless if he's good or bad, Oklahoma will have to apply pressure and get to him, maybe cause some turnovers or stop any momentum that he builds. Now, you mentioned Puka Williams Jr. There's also a pretty good running back in that backfield in Khalil Herbert, the guy who came into the season as the anticipated #1 running back. And he's had some
People don't
effective
think about
games.
that.
In fact, last week, 3 running backs had a pretty good day. Dom Williams, he was one of the backs, Puka Williams Jr., and Khalil Herbert. All 3 of them had some yardage. If that trio has the similar data to what they had last week, it will help this offense out immensely because they'll be able to keep Oklahoma's offense off the football field. Bottom line is, it's up to the Kansas offensive line to get it done. But the key player to it all, in my opinion, for Kansas offensively is Steven Sims Jr., the wide receiver. He is actually one of the best playmakers in the conference. However, what I'm looking at is Steven Sims is about 5'10". We've seen Oklahoma's defense struggle with receivers in the past. However, they've been receivers of stature, correct? Colin Johnson, players of that nature. If this Sooner defense struggles with Steven Sims at 5'10", a receiver that matches up very favorably to a guy like Trey Brown or Trey Norwood, then that's really when you, like you mentioned earlier, Josh, that's when you start raising the eyebrows. If you can't even keep one of those guys contained, there's a serious concern overall. So if they lock up Steven Sims and they can make sure that Peyton Bender does not build any positive momentum, Jayhawks won't have much of a chance. It'll be interesting to see. My real quick stat on the defense would be Joe Dineen, number one tackler.
Dude, I was waiting for that one.
Joe Dineen is the best tackling linebacker in the conference. However, outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on. And what is really concerning to me for the Jayhawks, right now, if you look at the stat leaders in the Big 12 Conference as far as quarterback sacks, you have to get until, I think, roughly the 15th before you see Daniel Wise Jr., the defensive tackle, with just 4 sacks. This team is bad at pass rush. That plays right into the fold for Oklahoma's offense, right? The offensive line is dominating at this point of the season. Kyler Murray is an unbelievable playmaker, especially with his feet, and if he can sit in the pocket, that would be dangerous, especially if they cannot get to him. And the loss of Dorrance Armstrong has been detrimental to this defense. They need to have some sort of pass rush in this game to even have a slight chance of building any momentum at all.
Do you guys want to hear a fun stat?
I like fun stats.
I thought we had already heard
Kansas
a bunch of fun
hasn't
stats.
beat
You have more,
a good team
wait, you have more
since
fun stats?
1922.
I have another fun stat.
Get out.
For the past 3 years, OU-Kansas matchup under Beatty, OU has won by an average score of 53-4. Is that good?
Defense.
I would say so. I like the
That
4.
seems pretty good. By the way, technically Beatty isn't the head coach anymore, which is weird. We could talk about that, how
Well,
kind
he
of
is still coaching there.
unique and
He's
weird
still
that,
coaching.
that situation
I
is.
wonder
but
how he's like legitimately now that it's looks like Les Miles is going to be the next head coach at Kansas. That deal has been starting to be finalized as of yesterday.
We should break that down, man.
It's kind of I'm just curious to know like how's David Beatty doing? Is he showing up to work? Just
Why
kinda,
is he still there?
Yeah,
It's
like
weird.
how do you? I know I would probably not show up to work. I wouldn't really do anything. I don't know how he.
How many
a
trick
guy-
plays do you draw up in your free time?
That's a guy who's
Yeah.
committed to his players, I guess, because I can't imagine
He's gonna have offensive linemen throwing the ball. at the end
wanting
of the
to finish a
season.
season with Kansas,
maybe he
getting
just
blown out a few
wants
more
to
times.
prove that he's a good coach, so he has a better shot of getting a better job going forward. That's what I would do if I was in this
I think his
situation.
work with Kansas kind of speaks for itself.
To be quite honest, I think that the highest honor surrounding this football game is not that it's senior night, not that it's the last game in the Palace on the Prairie in the regular season, but it's David Beatty's last road appearance, and I am so honored to be a part of it. What an ending way, or what a fitting way to
I love how we're going under the assumption that he's not going to coach again.
Well,
He's not gonna
right
coach
now he's
Kansas.
not coming back because this team was bad.
Underrated storyline is that David Beatty and Kyler Murray are like besties.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
It's
Noted
interesting.
Kyler.
yeah.
to Texas A&M.
Kyler, just spoke very highly
Yeah.
of David Beatty.
But
Beatty said that Kyler is basically family.
shifting
I
over.
was like,
Kyler's
didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay, wasn't
exactly.
prepared for that.
But shifting over to Les Miles, let's talk about it a little bit.
the
What
Mad
does
Hatter.
he bring to Kansas that you think could kind of bring this team out of the cellar, essentially, of the Big 12?
For me, Kansas has been so boring. We've talked about it this whole time. I mean, it's just kind of a boring matchup. Les Miles is the opposite of boring. He just brings an edge
Yes.
to this.
He eats grass.
Yeah. He eats grass.
He brings
But
an
it's a turf
edge
field.
Not
that
pain,
people
not
don't
pain,
bring.
but
So I'm
grass.
just excited to see,
That's what.
I mean, not only is
doesn't-
I
he
think
doesn't
he's a
drink
good
pain.
coach, he's intelligent. He can, he can turn things around, I think, pretty quickly for them. But he
Mm-hmm.
just adds, like I said, that edge that a lot of coaches wouldn't be able to bring to a program that's been
Mm-hmm.
just so boring.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I love it. I love the get for Kansas. I mean, they needed to do something. First of all, you want to not be horrible. That's a good starting point. But also, just it's fun. There's like 12 people at Kansas home games. Maybe now you get that up to like 20 people. Like some people are going to
That'd
show
be
up to
huge.
Kansas home games. They're capable of being good. I mean, like 10 years ago, they were in the Orange Bowl. Like you can actually win there somehow. It can be done. It's been done. So maybe Les Miles turns around. I don't think they're ever going to be that good with Les Miles, but at least like bowl game.
They
I
have
don't know.
nothing to lose. They're at rock
I love
bottom.
it. I think it's
Nothing
a great
to
game.
lose by
He's
the
coached
hire.
Oklahoma State. He's familiar with the Big 12. Like
Yeah.
He had a lot of success
like
at
it.
LSU.
I like it a lot.
You never
actually.
know.
It's
Yeah.
an it factor type of thing.
It's a
that
splash
the Kansas
from a
Jayhawks
program that
need
needed
to
one.
have happen, especially in times where there are professors on that campus questioning the validity of this football program. I mean, you had a law professor at Kansas University ask if the football program could be canceled because it's a waste of money. They need something to rejuvenate this program. Now, we know I'm an X's and O's guy, so I'm going to look at this for a real quick perspective because I think it's something we should also be concerned about. When Les Miles was at LSU, they had extreme issues in building positive offensive momentum.
They never had a quarterback that was any good.
They didn't have any quarterbacks, but at the same time, they ran I formation till they died. The fullback was the only fullback in the entire Southeastern Conference. Now, I understand what they want to do. Les Miles is a traditional football coach that wants to pound the football and control time of possession. That's great. But if you don't do that and you're in this conference, not the SEC, and you cannot maintain drives with the I formation, you will get smoked. You will get absolutely run out of the football building. So I don't really know if the I formation and what Les Miles brings to the table fits the conference. I know that if he's going to have success, he's going to have to change his methods, maybe outside of eating grass, because sometimes it works. But at the end of the
Isn't
day,
Kansas field turf?
it is turf, and that's why I said
adjust.
he's going to have to figure out a way to
Eat some
potentially
turf
digest
pellets.
that.
I hope he's gonna like those cardboard pellets or whatever those are.
Yeah, but whatever the scenario is, well, no matter the field that it's on, in this conference, you have to be able to put up points in a hurry.
Yeah,
and you cannot do that with his Les Miles offensive approach.
I was gonna say, I do like the hire a lot, but it is kind of funny that you're taking a coach that was very well known for always having great defense, great skill players, but not a good quarterback or a very good offense, and putting him in the most offensive conference.
That's their main concern.
But maybe maybe
generating some points.
Maybe
recruiting needs to pick up.
Yeah, the staff is gonna, I think, have a big impact on that. Especially, I mean, whoever he hires an offensive coordinator is going to have his hands full, but he's going to be lucky because there's Puka Williams Jr., just a freshman. That's a lot of potential.
Yeah, they got a little something. They're coming off, their best year in a while.
Yeah, it is. Let's shift back over to the Big 12 a little bit. We talked about West Virginia and Oklahoma next Friday. These are two teams that are both fighting for one of those last two potentially final college football playoff spot. As of right now, who do you think kind of has a better case for it?
For the playoff, I mean, it's funny because I think that they should have the same. I mean, they're basically in the same boat. They both have one loss, about to have the same wins. But I don't think West Virginia's going to make this thing unless Ohio State or Michigan, they both lose. You know what I mean? I think Ohio State would get in over West Virginia. I think OU would get in over Ohio State though, but not West Virginia, which is just, I think, purely off name recognition. I just don't know if the Mountaineers have it. And their loss was bad. Nobody. And it's because it was a night game and it was on a weird channel and nobody watched it or something. But I would say punked them.
Yeah.
So that game was not close. Brock Purdy owned. It will be terrible. So, that part of me is I don't think West Virginia really has that great a shot to make CFP. Plus, I think Oklahoma's going to beat them anyway.
Do you think they're going to win in Morgantown next week?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's a little too early for that. Madeline, what do you think?
I mean, for one thing, I think Michigan beats Ohio State and gets in, so I think the Big 12 does get left out.
See, I think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan.
That's me too.
In the case that happens,
there's going to be chaos.
In the case that happens, which it could, it's really tough. I go back and forth on, for one thing, would they even put a Big 12 champion that's won out in over Ohio State anyway? I really don't know about that. I think that'd be really tough to see. Does Ohio State still sneak in there? Personally, if I had to guess right now, what are they going to do? I would say they put Ohio State in. But when it comes to who has a better shot
over Oklahoma,
yes, I think they would be in over Oklahoma or West Virginia at this point. But when it comes to who I think has a slightly better case, it's tough. I think I go Oklahoma just because of name recognition alone. But when it comes to who I think deserves it, it might be West Virginia. I mean, if they've beaten Oklahoma 2 times and their losses to Iowa State, who's a pretty good football team, in my opinion, better than Texas, still a better loss than OU had, even though, like you said, obviously OU's loss was closer. It was by a slight margin, whereas West Virginia looked really bad against Iowa State. I still think when it comes to who deserves a little more, I would say West Virginia by a hair.
Yeah, and Washington State is still certainly of mention. I mean, they certainly have a chance, maybe not the greatest of
I feel
chances
like
to make a run in the playoff.
I honestly think they're overrated. I don't think the committee will take them seriously. No, Washington State.
Yeah.
What's a factor that is hindering West Virginia is the fact that they had a game with NC State get canceled at the beginning of the season.
True. That could have been a solid win.
That's a nice non-con win against a top 25 team that they weren't able to get. So that's kind of hurting them a little bit too, because they played Tennessee, and of course, but Tennessee is not very good. We all know that. So, I don't know. I mean, West Virginia's loss is worse than OU's loss, and they are going to have basically the same resume.
And it's going to be interesting too, because if you really think about it, let's say Ohio State beats Michigan. You also look at the losses. Well, Iowa State, Purdue, obviously you would tilt towards West Virginia, but then I would go to the conference championship games. And West Virginia, if they're going to make the case, they have to have someone that they can play in that title game to also make a case, because Ohio State or Michigan will likely play a ranked team in Northwestern. Northwestern right now has clinched an appearance in that title game, and right now I believe they sit at 22.
Another thing
and
that's
the
not
playoff
good,
committee likes them.
Another thing not good for West Virginia is that they probably would really like to play Iowa State in a Big 12 title game to be like, hey, we're better than that, but they're not going to. It's not going to happen unless you lose to Kansas today, which would be just a massive
Yeah,
upset.
and that would be my point is really at the end of the day, we can talk about the cases, but West Virginia would even need a solid matchup in that title game to have some sort of justification against a Ohio State or Michigan. But if Michigan does beat Ohio State, I don't think West Virginia even has a slight chance.
I guess a big question, too, that I would want to know for OU's sake, too, is how much credit do you get for beating a team twice in a row like that? Is it better to beat the same team twice or to beat two different teams?
That's the thing. I feel like it's better. I feel like it's better to beat two different teams. Because you look at TCU last year, TCU wasn't exactly all that. You watched OU handle them twice like it was nothing. West Virginia is a good team. I can't argue that. We'll see how it goes next Friday in Morgantown. I think you'll get a better sense then.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a little tougher to kind of judge a team just by 2 wins over the same team.
I mean, yeah, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure never in the history of college football has there 2 teams played 2 consecutive weeks. That I can ever think of why that scenario would have ever happened, because there's divisions in every other conference, so that never happens.
I will say,
I don't know, there's no precedent for how much value you get for that.
if Oklahoma State beats West Virginia in Stillwater,
that could happen.
which could happen.
Yeah, I have a weird feeling about that game.
Texas beats Iowa State, which could happen. That's in Austin.
Yep.
Two home games for those 2 orange teams. And then OU beats West Virginia next week. They would play Texas in the Big 12 title game. And I think if they beat Texas, they avenge their loss. I think you have to put them in over Ohio State in that scenario because they've avenged their loss, which turns out to be a much, much, much better loss than Purdue.
I agree. I mean, I think what you mean anyway, but I do agree with that.
If Oklahoma has a chance to play Iowa State with Brock Purdy, of course, I don't think people remember very well, but we all surely do. This Oklahoma team just beat Iowa State by 10 on the road.
And it wasn't even Brock Purdy at quarterback.
It was not Brock Purdy at quarterback.
Our boys
and
Zeb.
Hakeem Butler went for 160, 170 yards. So if they get to play Iowa State again with a refound offense, that would be even a resume boost in that sense. But playing West Virginia twice, to me, just personally, would feel a little dull. It would just be boring, and it wouldn't help them very much.
Also, it's OU's probably. I mean, that's hard to beat a good quality team 2 straight weeks like that.
Yeah.
You beat them the first time. What adjustments can you make when you win to get better by a week to beat them the second time?
Yeah.
And also, you look at it. West Virginia is ranked up there. I think it's debatable whether it's better for it to play West Virginia twice and to beat them twice, because they're still ranked higher than Iowa State is. I think they'd still be ranked higher even if they lose next Friday.
Yeah, but
but if Iowa State beats Texas, I mean, they'd be close. I don't know. It'd be close. Iowa State, I believe, is 16 right now. West Virginia's 9. So, I mean, if West Virginia loses to Oklahoma State and Iowa State beats Texas, you would think Iowa State would jump them.
The bottom line is we wouldn't be having this discussion.
They should.
We wouldn't be having this discussion if we knew for sure if playing a team twice helps. But now
We
that we
don't
don't know,
happen.
we have to have
That's
this
what I'm saying.
discussion.
There's no precedent for how much the committee's like, hey, that's really cool. It'd be the same good team 2 straight weeks like that. It's literally never happened.
Yeah, so if that indicates anything to me, the fact that we have to have this conversation shows me that it would be better for the Sooners to play a different opponent. That just from what I'm gathering from the nature of the discussion.
I can see the committee saying, you already beat West Virginia last week.
Yeah.
We don't care that you beat them again.
Now I kind of hope that happens so we can kind of see
I feel like
how the committee takes
I feel like there'd be a
it,
lot
what their
of kind
opinions
of
are on that.
a lot of storylines underneath, but people don't really think about it.
No.
West Virginia could beat Oklahoma back-to-back weeks. It could just as easily be the other way around. West Virginia wins out, and all of a sudden they're in that number 5, maybe number 4 spot. I think that
worst
could
case
really
scenario for
happen.
Big 12 is they split the 2 games. And
And that would be my point too. Is they're going to go on the road to Morgantown. It's going to be cold and rainy. You're going to have to run the football. West Virginia could lose that football game because they have a terrible running game. But then you move that game indoors, and West Virginia is able to throw the football around like their offense would actually try and adjust to.
Yeah.
And maybe West Virginia gets that second time around because they're in more of a natural environment. It's really a shaky scenario overall for the Sooners, and in my opinion, you don't want to see West Virginia twice, especially indoors in AT&T Stadium.
Bottom line for Oklahoma, just win your games. Just
You better win.
whoever's
Take
out
care of
there,
business. You
win
better
them,
take care of
and then
business.
hope that Michigan and Notre Dame stumbles.
You need a domino to fall, period.
Yeah,
that's pretty simple for me.
Lots of questions left. That's why it's championship November. There's tons of chaos that can
Can we
still
get some
happen.
drama? There's been no drama in this season.
I don't know if there will be some
Give me
today,
a little
but next
something.
week. Let's wait till next week. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's not going to happen this week. The Citadel.
That's going to do it for us right now here. We're going to go back to the studio team. Tori Johnson's going to take over. They're going to talk some college football playoff. We'll be back. Final words, call outs, score predictions, and maybe a little bit of college football playoff talk. You're going to want to stick around to find out.
Welcome back to the studio here on Game Day U. I'm Tori Johnson, and it's time to recognize this week's NFL Sooners standout. For the second consecutive week, we hand the award to 2017 Heisman Trophy winner Baker Mayfield. This past Sunday, Mayfield turned in his most effective performance of his young pro career. He completed 17 of 20 passes for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns, while adding 20 yards on the ground. Behind their rookie single-calling sensation, Mayfield's Cleveland Browns soundly defeated the Atlanta Falcons 28-16. Mayfield's brilliance was enough to earn him the nod as the first ever repeat winner of a Sooner Standout honors. But now it's time for us to toss it over to Colin, Josh, Sam, and Madeline. They're going to give us their top 6 college football playoff rankings.
Thanks, Tori. Appreciate it. Guys, we're back. This is the moment I feel like we've kind of been waiting for the entire show.
You hinted at it, and it's happening.
We hinted at it, and it's happening. We're talking college football playoff, top 25 rankings being released every week, and now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to go through everybody's top 6, starting with you, Josh.
All right, so this is the top 6 what we think is going to be at the end.
At the end of the season, this is what we think is going to happen.
So Bama's not going to lose a game. They're the best team we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So they're going to be
Sounds
number
about right.
1. I don't know why they would lose. I mean, they do have to play Georgia. That's tough, but they're going to win that game, I would think. 2 is Clemson. They play nobody. They're very good. They're the second best team behind Bama, and they also play nobody. So they're not. Why would they lose a game? So they're number 2 for me. Notre Dame is 3. Again, why would they lose a game? They play Syracuse today. That could be tricky, but it's not a trap game if everybody says it's a trap game. That makes it not a trap game. So they're going to show up. Ian Book's going to play great, and they don't have a championship game, so they're going to win that one. They'll be 3. 4, I got Oklahoma. I think the Sooners make it. I think they will win out. I think they'll beat West Virginia. Then they're going to play Iowa State in the Big 12 title game. They're going to win that.
You're still riding that Iowa State train.
That's what's going to happen because they're going to beat Texas, and then when they beat West Virginia, that's the dominoes. I think Michigan's going to lose to Ohio State. Ohio State is my number 5. I think Ohio State beats Michigan, and that eliminates Michigan. And then I think it comes down to OU Ohio State for that 4th spot, and they give it to Oklahoma because their loss isn't as bad, and the resume is basically just as good. I think winning in Morgantown is just as impressive as beating Michigan at home. And maybe you guys disagree with that, but that's kind of how I see it. And then I think Washington State's number 6 just by default because they'll keep winning. They're not a legit playoff team. They play in a bad conference. I think they very well could lose the Apple Cup. I'm just assuming they're at home they'll win. But that's my top 6 at the end of the year.
They are at home for that.
And we get that OU Bama matchup that we all really want.
Yeah.
Hopefully in Miami.
Interesting. All right, my top 3 are basically the same. As in
It's hard to argue. I wanted to change it up.
You'd like to think maybe Notre Dame would lose or something, but you just can't really see it happening.
But I don't.
So
I couldn't make myself believe it.
Number 1, I have Alabama. They're not going to lose. They're going to beat every opponent by 75 points. Tua is the best player a lot of us have ever seen play football, or one of the best. Number 2, I've got Clemson. They're not going to lose.
They play nobody.
3, Notre Dame. You'd like to see them lose, but they're not going to. All right, this is where it gets interesting. Number 4, I'm going to say Michigan. I think they beat Ohio State, which is just one of the best wins anyone could have in Columbus.
First time for Jim Harbaugh.
And their one loss is the best loss anyone ever has to Notre Dame. So I think they're the number 4 spot. Number 5, I've got LSU. They've been pretty good. I mean, obviously they lost to Baylor, didn't score a single point, but they've been good all year pretty much. And then number 6, I have UCF. Not because they deserve to be there. I don't think I could talk forever about UCF.
They would never get that high.
But I think all the other teams around them will lose games. I think Washington State loses to Washington in an upset. And I think in the Big 12, I think whoever wins the Big 12 title game will have 2 losses at least. So it's just not going to look very good for the Big 12.
Do you have OU and West Virginia splitting?
I would say they would split.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have OU winning both those games or West Virginia.
We don't talk enough about how the committee is using LSU as a crutch for Alabama, but it's
certainly I'm going to go off. Just wait, bro.
It's certainly the case. If a 2-loss team is that highly ranked, then this entire thing is a joke.
Just wait.
It is, and they will be
And also
number 5.
having UCF that high, okay.
They would never get that high.
Look at who's around them.
It doesn't matter. They would not jump. Even there could be a 3-loss.
What are they right now? Number 11?
Yeah,
I
the
say
American
I say it
Conference
every
is
week.
loaded.
My favorite part of the season has been watching UCF stay at number 10 every
I
season.
said they don't deserve to be there.
UCF's
I
going
just
to
think
get
they
beat
will.
tonight.
They're playing number
and they're
24
gonna go
Cincinnati.
away and cry about it.
Could be an upset. All right,
Oh,
here we
who
go.
you got?
Let's go ahead and roll this thing through. I agree with Josh very much, but I'm going to go ahead and try and cover all of our bases, make sure that on this show we're very
Somebody
accurate.
we can be right no matter what happens.
That way
Capital
we're all
J
good.
Jones.
All right, number 1, I'm going to start off with Alabama. Shocker, I know. If they can squeak out a
hot
win
take.
against the Citadel, I think they're good the rest of the way.
That's some really challenging scheduling.
Are you sure?
down there
They're on
That's
upset
a
alert
toughie.
today for sure. But if they can squeak out a win against the Citadel, I like them. Obviously, they would play Georgia likely in the SEC title game, but Georgia's offensive line is terrible this year. I think that plays right into an Alabama defense that isn't really up to par. And on top of that, we don't get to talk about him enough on this show, but I think Jerry Jeudy is one of the best yards after the catch receivers I've seen in a very long time. He makes Tua look even better. So knowing all of those factors, Alabama's just almost unbeatable. Number 2, Clemson, they don't play anyone.
They're good anyway, and they don't play anybody.
They don't play anybody, and they have a really good football team. I like the development of Lawrence at quarterback. I think Travis Etienne has suddenly thrown his hat in the ring as a potential Heisman candidate. I don't think that'll be the case at the end of the season, but he's having a great year. And of course, that defensive line is unbelievable. Number 3, Notre Dame. They play Syracuse today. Another tailor-made upset that's not going to happen. You learned your lesson from Northwestern. And then the next best opportunity for them to lose is against USC, who I think is really hot garbage. So at the end of it all, I think Notre Dame finishes the year undefeated. You could see 3 unbeaten teams in college football, which, again, I don't really know when the last time that's happened. Number 4, I'm going to go with Oklahoma, and I really do think that I'm on the same boat as Josh. We've learned and seen it several times. This Oklahoma football team dominates West Virginia every single time they've played them, except that one trip out in Morgantown where things are a little bit nitty-gritty. But at the same time, I'm looking at that football game out there and thinking West Virginia is not going to be able to throw the football all the way around. They may not get it done. At the end of the day, if Iowa State takes care of business, West Virginia won't have a chance to see Oklahoma. That puts Oklahoma in a nice spot to get the number 4 spot. Number 5, this is where, of course, I want to try and vary things, make sure we're all on our P's and Q's. I'm going to put Washington State at 5. Now, obviously, Ohio State would certainly have the case here, and I would agree that they would put Ohio State at the number 5 spot. But again, they would have potentially 2 wins over Utah, who's in the top 25 in the conference title game and in a game that was played earlier on in the season. They'd also have Washington at the end of the year in a rivalry game, a top 25 matchup again. And of course, we've seen it to this point. Washington State has been very highly ranked by the playoff committee. I don't see too much reason why that would change, unless, of course, Ohio State gets that win. And then I do have number 6, Ohio State. I firmly believe, and I've said it for a very long time, that Ohio State's going to get the job done. Of course, Michigan right now is the better football team, especially defensively, but things change in rivalry settings, especially when you go to the Horseshoe. Ohio State and Dwayne Haskins, a guy that I've been very high on for a very long time. I think the Buckeyes get it done.
There you go. You guys touched a lot of bases. I'll keep mine quick. Alabama at number 1, dominant as always under Nick Saban, probably one of the best teams he's ever had. Clemson at 2, like you said, they don't play anybody the rest of the season, not really much of a challenge. It'll be interesting to see how Trevor Lawrence plays under the bright lights. Kind of a big time moment.
Good team.
Yeah, we'll see how kind of that works out. Same thing with Notre Dame at 3. They don't play anybody the rest of the season. They might get tested today by Eric Dungey in Syracuse, but I don't see it happening. At number 4, I've got Ohio State. I think they beat Michigan. I think they go on and win the Big Ten championship. I think they're in good enough of a spot to where they can jump 5 spots in a matter of a couple weeks. And I think there's going to be so much chaos in the Big 12 that it's kind of going to make everything fall apart. I've got Washington State at number 5. I think it's really unlikely the committee will take them seriously enough to get them in. Gardner Minshew has been pretty awesome. You got to fear the stash, but I don't think they're going to get in. And then number 6, Georgia. I have Georgia at number 6 after losing the SEC title game to Alabama. So I think same as Maryland, I think OU is going to split those games with West Virginia, and both of them essentially are going to get knocked out.
Well, it's
of the
going to
playoff
be
picture.
super interesting, and we all don't think it's going to happen. But if Georgia does beat Bama, are they bold enough to leave Bama out?
No.
I don't think so.
That's crazy because they haven't played anybody.
I don't think so. You heard our college football playoff picks. Let's toss it back to the studio. Tori Johnson and the rest of the crew will give you theirs.
Thanks, Sam. Always good stuff from you guys. But now it's time for y'all to be my playoff committee and tell me your top 6. Carly, who you got?
All right, I'm going to stick with the trend of the Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame. Even though I predicted Alabama to be losing in the beginning, or losing soon, I don't see it actually happening. It was just a random guess. And then Clemson, Notre Dame, unless Notre Dame loses tonight to Syracuse, it's not going to happen. Or they're going to go undefeated. And then next, I have Oklahoma. I'm convinced that they are going to go undefeated for the rest of the season against West Virginia back-to-back. And then I have Ohio State, pretty similar to Josh's picks. And Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, and there's no doubt in my mind that they will jump up into the top 6. And then finally, I have Georgia, because the only team they're going to lose to, if they do, is Alabama. And I think that's a loss that's easily forgiven.
Okay, Matt, you're up. Who's your top 6?
Well, falling in line with everybody else, and as I said earlier, Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to believe that Alabama can lose until I actually see them lose. They're just that good. And second, Clemson, there's not a team left on Clemson's schedule that can hang with them. Just straight up, okay? And Notre Dame, I do think they're going to win their final 2 games, so pretty easy choice there. My number 4, Michigan. These past few weeks have made me a believer in the Wolverines. They've allowed 3 touchdowns in their past 3 games, one of which came in garbage time against Penn State after they were already up 42-0. This defense is scary, and even scarier, Shea Patterson and the offense finally look to have gotten things clicking. Obviously, a large part of this is going to hinge on the Michigan-Ohio State game. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to go into Columbus and get the white whale that has eluded him so far during his tenure. He is going to beat the Buckeyes. Look, they're a flawed team. They're a very flawed team. You were bringing up some of your picks from earlier in the season. And back in September, I said this Ohio State defense has a lot of holes. They got exposed against Purdue. They had a bye week, and then they came back for a home game against Nebraska and still almost lost.
Got that TCU dub, though.
They did. So number 5, Washington State. I do think the Cougars are going to win out and win the Pac-12. Number 6, Oklahoma. As I said, they lose in Morgantown. They get the Mountaineers back in the Big 12 title game.
Well, kind of going to sound like a broken record up to this point, and that's the blessing I get for getting to go last. Alabama at 1, Heisman frontrunner. He's going to have a 1,000-yard receiver in Jerry Jeudy, 2 700-yard-plus rushers in both the Harris boys, 2 top 20 in sack leaders. They're number 1. Clemson, number 2. T. Higgins has been phenomenal. ETN, I think, is the best back in college football right now, 8.5 yards to carry. And then Notre Dame at 3, still undefeated. I still think they're going to go undefeated the rest of the way. They're not going to have a conference title game. And then in my 4th spot, I'm going to go with Oklahoma as well. I think that them and Clemson are the 2 teams best equipped offensively to be able to actually hang with Alabama in a national title game or in the first-round game, which would be OU's case. It's not about the defense. It's not about the fact that they have a lot of gaping holes in that end. It's just the fact that they are one of 2 teams in the world that can score with Alabama to make the game interesting. Now, my first 2 out, I'm going Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, as they always do, and I just think they find a way to get it done. Michigan tanks late in the season, usually. They haven't done this well in a very long time. So I have Ohio State winning under the bright lights, and then my sixth seed will be Georgia. They suffer a loss to Alabama in the SEC title game, and they don't really fall because you can't fault a team for losing to a team that good, and everyone knows the talent that Georgia has. So Georgia gets the 6th spot, and those are my first 2 teams left outside of the top 4.
Okay, well, we will find out in the next coming weeks what's really going to happen, but good picks, guys, and it's time for us to take another break, but whenever we come back, it'll be with Sam and the crew. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Game Day U. Just like the Sooners, we made it down to the final stretch here in Norman. See how I did that? You see that? Did you see that? There we go. I'm just like Colin. We're back.
That was subpar, but I appreciate the effort.
We're back for the final segment of the day. We're talking final words, call-outs, score predictions. We're going to start with final word. Josh, give me yours.
All right, so remember for the Kansas State show, my word was boring.
And it was a boring word.
I'm boosting it up to even more boring. I'm going mind-numbing.
That's 2 words.
Today because, no, it's not. It's a hyphen. It's even more extreme boredom because this game is super boring. It's Kansas. The only thing that gives it any kind of life at all is that it's the last home game for all the seniors, and obviously Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown are probably out of here as well. This is a game that's just, just take care of business, get the starters out. It's probably going to be dull. We're probably going to want to leave around the 3rd quarter, but we can't. We just stay for post-game and stuff. So it's bull. But,
it's going to be a long night.
This is a pretty, K-State was boring. This game is mind-numbing.
Beautiful.
Interesting. All right. Well, my favorite show on the planet is Friends. Joey Tribbiani is one of my favorites on the show.
How you do?
There's an episode where he doesn't know what the word abysmal means. My word is abysmal. You know why? Because the meaning is twofold. One, Kansas offense specifically is abysmal. They're an abysmal team overall. It's going to be abysmal. But also OU's defense has been just so abysmal. I can't say the word abysmal enough for how abysmal it has been.
Chill.
So,
How abysmal has it been?
as we touched on earlier, this could be a confidence boost for them. Yes, Kansas is a mind-numbingly bad team. They're an abysmal team. But, any good production from the defense is production that will boost their confidence a little bit.
My final word is a little sentimental, and I think it needs to be addressed. My final word is thanks. In other words, thank you. And what you all may
That's
not
two
know
words.
at home,
That's what thanks means. Thanks, bud. for
Thanks.
that info.
That's 2 words.
what you all may not know is this could be our last show
Hopefully
at
not.
GamedayU.
Hopefully
We're
not.
going to try and pull off a special edition Big 12 championship show that hasn't really been done before. But if that's the case, I did want to take some time and say, as a senior and a guy who's been doing this for a little bit of time, I want to say thank you. So I want to start off by saying thank you so much to Parker Thune, Kurt Watson, and Jesse Lofton. Those 3 have worked alongside me as sort of a secret leadership team trying to make sure that this show is effective, informative, and entertaining, and it all falls on those 3 shoulders. I cannot state enough the quality of work that they've done, and I appreciate them. I want to say thank you to Lynn Franklin, Barry Orr, Ken Fisher, and David Candy. You guys have been really the reason why this show operates, and without your advisement and your insightful opportunities and advice, this just would not happen. I want to say thank you to everyone in studio. You guys have done an amazing job. Thank you to everyone on crew that has constantly showed up at 5:36 in the morning, making sure that we provide the best possible show possible. And at the end of the day, I also want to say thank you to this crew right here. They've been an unbelievable team. Obviously, I missed out on some close friends last year, and I thought, how would we replicate it? We've done so and even more. I also want to say thank you to the people watching at home. And what you also don't know is we have a lot of parents in the control room right now watching their students and their children go through this process. And we want to thank all of you for making this opportunity possible, because without all of you, this is not possible at all. And we do this all for you guys. So thank you all for an unbelievable season. This has meant a lot to me. I love this show really more than anything. And at the end of the day, I just have to state how grateful I am for this opportunity every Saturday morning.
Do you have a final word for the game?
I think we've addressed enough how boring it is.
That was very well said.
Hopefully we're back in Arlington.
That was really nice,
Yeah,
Colin.
hopefully we'll be back in Arlington.
But you also insulted everyone by insinuating that they don't know what the word thanks means.
That was pretty funny.
I said, in other words, thank you.
Yeah, you had to
because
define the
thanks
word.
is just a boring word.
There you go.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. You know, I
Thank
take my
you.
thanks
You
back
know what?
for you
Thank
guys.
you.
You guys are done.
You know what? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I appreciate your service.
Thanks.
We'll be at Jerry World.
All right, my final word. We're actually going to go back to the game here a little bit on this one. I'm going to
Yeah,
say
let's do it.
tune up, because that's what today is. I think it's just a nice tune up before West Virginia next week. Don't need to make anything more complicated than it is. Get off to a quick start, put some points up on the board, get these starters out, let Kyler Murray rest, let all the big guys rest. Marquise Brown is finally back at 100%, but it'd be nice to let him rest for a little bit. Just get these players in the best mentality possible, because this is a short week. And Friday at West Virginia, that's going to be electric. It's going to be so
Be a lot
loud.
of
This is
fun.
the best chance, I think, that West Virginia has had at a national championship in years. And the fan base is going to be unbelievable. So don't get ahead of yourself. Get through this game. But next week's the big one. Next week's the big one you got to worry about.
It is.
Sure.
Call-outs. Josh, who we got?
Yeah, I made my thoughts on this game, I think, pretty perfectly clear. So my call-out's a CFP committee. You're really bad, and you've been bad the entire time we've gone to this committee. I have not liked it. I feel like it's been wrong just about every single year. As Colin touched on, LSU being number 7 is pretty laughably bad. As I also touched on myself, it seems like when teams play horrible offense and really good defense, you get tons of love. But when teams play really bad defense and amazing, record-breaking offense, those teams don't get credit. And I don't understand that. This year's pretty easy. You have your top 4. If those 4 teams win, they should be in. If Michigan loses and Notre Dame loses, the OU should be the next team up. I feel like that is so cut and dry. And then Ohio State, it's very easy. I don't think this year should be messed up. Alabama, if they lose to Georgia, should not get in. I know they will, but they should not. They haven't played anybody. So I'm just waiting for the committee to mess it up again this year, like they always do. So just looking forward to another year where I can be mad at the committee.
I like the
Can't wait.
confidence.
I'm
Well,
excited.
they're
I like the
0 for
positivity
5,
over
how
it.
many years we've done it, so.
Maybe 1 for 6.
Okay, well,
Tensions are high on that side of the table.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
my
Constantly
tensions
teams
are
that shouldn't
high.
be in there.
I'm going to call out the seniors. There's 18 seniors / redshirt juniors that will be honored today at halftime. Some of the likes are Jonathan Alvarez, who's giving up football because of some health reasons. You got Curtis Bolton, who's been through a lot to get to where he is, and has been a huge anchor for this defense this year. You got Carson Meyer, Austin Seibert, Rodney Anderson, who's going to the NFL, Amani Bledsoe, Drew Samia, Ben Powers. Congrats to you guys for having good careers overall, and just good luck to wherever you're going next.
I think Rodney Anderson's going to get honored today, too.
Yeah, he's going to be there.
I just mentioned him,
yeah. I totally missed that, sorry.
Way over.
Tyler and Hollywood should be in there, too, even though they won't be.
Yeah, I'm calling out this crew because they didn't like my sentimental value earlier, so no, I'm just kidding. My call out is something.
We liked it. We liked it.
Yeah, thank you again. No, my call out is the fans, and on the show if you've watched it, I'm not typically the nicest to the fans, and I know exactly what you're thinking. He's calling out the fans because it's Kansas and it needs to be a good crowd. No, to be quite honest, there hasn't been one single atmosphere at Gaylord Family Oakland Memorial Stadium this year that has been memorable, period.
That's not true.
It's very true.
Army was pretty.
Army, there were empty seats, and even last week for Bedlam, there were empty seats. That's an absolute joke. The sellout thing is an absolute joke as well. But I'm going to call out the fans because of this. I touched on it early in the show, and I got a little heat for it, but I think I'm pretty correct. The fans got a man fired in Mike Stoops. And yes, at the time it seemed like the right move, but right now things are getting incrementally worse defensively. In fact, we spent most of the show today absolutely trashing the product on the field, that is the OU defense. Why? This is what you have wanted, period. I know for a fact that there were changes to be made after the season. Mike Stoops was going to move on and they were going to explore new DC options after the conclusion of this season. And I understand if you want to make that move, you want to try and justify this offense because it's one of the best. I get it. But at the same time, if you make that change, you also have to own up to the results. And the results have been utterly negative and disappointing, but it is what you have wanted. If you're going to continue to support this team, which for the most part you have not, the amount of social media backlash I've seen over the past couple of weeks has been quite astounding and honestly a little disgusting. If you're going to continue this pace, you're going to have to go ahead and start figuring out that you have to support what you have called for.
Is the defense really that much worse?
Yes. Bad.
I think they've gotten worse.
I think it's basically the same.
In the last couple of weeks.
We weren't doing this a couple of weeks ago.
That was definitely my call. It kind of took mine, but you jumped the gun first. So the fans, you shouldn't. If you're booing a team at Kansas, like during the Kansas game, imagine what that's going to do for the players. That's the point I had about it. It's just not. It's not the right thing to do.
There's a divide growing between the players and the fan base, and they don't know it.
Yeah. My call out, I'm going to stick to the team. I'm going to go Trey Brown today because I think that in terms of the last couple weeks, obviously you've seen wide receivers kind of have a field day against the Sooners. It really hasn't been close. You've had Tylan Wallace go off, Antoine Wesley go off. You got David Sills on Friday. You got David Sills, a guy who's 6'6", 195 pounds, can get the ball anywhere out of the air. You've got Gary Jennings, a guy who can get the ball underneath, and then Marcus Sims, the freshman, over the top. They need at least one good cornerback. And they're not going to get really tested today. You got Steven Sims, their leading wide receiver, but he doesn't even have 500 yards, Josh. You mentioned it earlier in the show. So this is kind of an opportunity, I see it, for a corner to kind of stand out and say, hey, I'm that guy. And Trey Brown has shown the most potential out of the three, out of him, Trey Norwood, and Parnell Motley. Parnell Motley's been the bigger playmaker, but he's also more consistent. And Trey Brown's just consistently average. You're not going to get a lot from him. I like what I see from Trey Brown. I like what I have seen, but that needs to be more consistent, and that needs to be there today. Show that you are the main guy for next week. Show him you want David Sills. You should want that challenge.
I don't think you want him at all.
I don't think you want him, but you should want that challenge.
Yeah.
The challenge.
Alrighty.
All right. Score predictions. We're going to go real quick with these. Josh, what do you got?
I mean, 55-17 Oklahoma. Kansas will get some points here probably toward the end of the game. I got no reason to think that this game will be even remotely close.
I haven't had a correct score prediction all year, so it's going to be this one. 61-28 Sooners. It's going to happen.
How's Kansas getting 28 points?
Some of those will come in garbage time. They'll play some second string, third string defense out there for the Sooners.
We'll see. I'm going to go 56-21, maybe a touchdown for Kansas in garbage time. I don't see this one being too fun to watch.
It's going to be ugly.
I've got 66-17 OU. I think OU's going to put up a lot of points. Kyler Murray might be gone by. I think Kyler Murray might be gone by halftime of this one. I really don't see this one being close for very long. Real quick, talking about the national landscape of things, where do you see things going today? Not a lot of trouble? Not a lot of upsets?
No, nothing's going to happen today. It's going to be just like last week.
The Citadel's pretty good, so.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
The most important thing that could happen is if Tua's knee gets worse. That's the only thing that could happen.
I don't even think they'll play him.
This Kansas game will be the epitome of the landscape today. It will be utterly boring.
I have a question for you guys. If Tua, gets hurt and can't play, does that help Kyler's chances a lot in the Heisman race?
He would win
absolutely.
You think he would win?
I think he would win it outright.
He almost should be winning
I
now.
legitimately think he would because you've got.
Maybe he should be, but
if Tua goes down, you're gonna look at it and say, wow, he played about 2.5 quarters in almost all of their games this year, and he's just ended up hurt.
I think Tua's going to win the Heisman, and I'm not going to be that upset about anything. But I think Kyler should get a lot more.
I think he should get a lot more
consideration than he's getting.
It's starting to get close.
If you take all his fourth quarters away, he still has way better numbers than Tua does, and you could definitely argue that Kyler's much more instrumental to Oklahoma's success than Tua is to Bama's success. Bama would still be undefeated if Jalen Hurts was the quarterback. So, I think there's a good argument to be made for Kyler Murray.
Bottom line, Kyler Murray is going to leave this program as one of the most enigmatic and impactful
What a weird year
that this football team has ever seen, and he will go utterly unappreciated.
He is unbelievable how good he is.
There's never been a season like this. I feel like ever. Like you never
He's
see
a
a
cheat
player
code.
transition, a dual sport athlete transition from baseball, commit to playing baseball, professional baseball, and then come back and just set the college football landscape.
He's gonna finish this season, probably be Heisman runner-up, and then never play football again.
It's so weird. I mean,
That's gonna be weird.
he'll be with the A's next year. Like, it's just so weird to think about.
He'll be with the A's, and he will probably have broken Baker Mayfield's passing efficiency record for all time.
And
Silly.
he'll not even break it, like shatter it.
Yeah.
And we thought Baker Mayfield's season was good.
Yep.
Man, we are crazy.
It's not fair that he can do that, and I can barely do like 5 push-ups. It's just
I got
not
a solid.
fair.
I got a solid
Less
20
than
in me at least.
Multitasking is an extreme
You're
struggle
basically
for me,
Kyler
so.
Murray over there. So.
At least one.
Shout out to the Kyler Bo Jackson
Yes,
thing,
real quick
too,
before we
by the
go,
way.
how do you
cool.
like that picture?
Kyler
That was
knows.
cool.
I want to know what Bo thinks. What does he have to say
That's
about
a
it?
good
I feel like Bo
thought.
Jackson doesn't know what's going on at all. I feel like he doesn't get on
Do
Twitter.
you
he
think
doesn't
Bo
watch TV.
Jackson has internet?
Dude,
Probably not.
He
literally.
goes out in the woods with a bow and just
He shoots
hides
bow and arrows.
from
Yeah, I saw
humanity.
that.
But he's one of my favorite players and people of
He's
all
awesome.
time, so I want to know what he has to say. He's one of the guys that
Shout
I
out
look
to
up
my dog, Bo Jackson. Almost as cool as the real Bo Jackson.
Shout out to the dog that's going to be staying at our place this weekend. His name's Bo too, but that really doesn't matter. Sorry. Just wanted to throw that one out there. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much
Hopefully
for
we
tuning
see you
in,
in
for sticking
Arlington.
around with us. Hopefully we see you in Arlington. But for now, Tori Johnson and the studio team, they're going to take over. They got a lot of games to talk about this weekend.
Welcome back to the studio of Game Day U. As you know, I'm Tori Johnson, and I am here with Spencer, Matt, and Carly. And this could very well be the last time you see us for the rest of football season. So, guys, last one, best one, let's make it good. And it is time for these three to pick them. So, I'm going to give you a top national game, and I want you guys to tell me who you pick for your winner and why. So, Carly, first game, Syracuse versus Notre Dame. Who you got?
I have Notre Dame over Syracuse. The only reason that Syracuse would win is because Notre Dame hasn't had that tough loss. And if you haven't lost yet, they'll go in all cocky saying, hey, we're going to win. This is going to be an easy blowout. And then Syracuse will just trample right over them. But I don't actually see that happening. So I have Notre Dame over Syracuse.
Okay, Matt, do you agree with her or no?
Yep, I'm with you, Carly. I think Notre Dame wins. A lot of people seem to like Syracuse in an upset because of their offense. But here's the thing. Yes, that offense has been putting up some good numbers this season, but they've largely been doing it against mediocre defenses. Syracuse has only faced 2 defenses ranked in the top 50 in S&P+, and both of those defenses, Clemson and Florida State, have held the Orange to well below their season scoring average. On the other side of the ball, Notre Dame's defense has faced 4 top 50 offenses. Syracuse comes in ranked at number 39, so the Irish are definitely prepared for this game.
Clean sweep. I'm going Notre Dame as well. Syracuse is ranked way too high right now, and I think it's to juice the late game rankings because these past 2 game slates for the past 2 weeks have been not very fun to look at. Dungy is a 4-year starter for Syracuse. He's been in big games before. He's pulled off a couple upsets even, but I don't see it happening today. Notre Dame is better at every single position on the field. Ian Book's back, and I'm just tired of people saying, like you said, that this is a trap game for Notre Dame. First of all, if everyone says it's a trap game, it's not a trap anymore. So
it can't be an actual trap game. Everyone's talking about it, so you need to keep that quiet next time. And they're just not the 12th best team in college football, and I think they're going to get run over today by Notre Dame.
Okay. Well, I would like to see Syracuse win personally because obviously it helps the Sooners. And speaking of Big 12, let's move on to a Big 12 matchup: Iowa State versus Texas. Who you got?
Iowa State. I have Iowa State over Texas. Iowa State obviously has the better defense. They have allowed a whole touchdown less than Texas has, and they're on a 5-game win streak, and they're just looking forward to making it win number 6 today.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, once again, I'm with Carly. If there's one thing I've learned in the past few years in college football, it's that you should never sleep on a Matt Campbell team. I think Iowa State is going to go into Texas, get the win. Here's the thing. Texas is kind of banged up right now. They've got guys like Colin Johnson and Keontae Ingram coming off of injuries. They've also got some injuries in the secondary. And the defense, Carly, you mentioned, Texas's defense has been abysmal lately, even by Big 12 standards. In their past 3 games, they've allowed an average of 560 yards per game and a 57% conversion rate on third downs. That's bad.
That is
Terrible, actually.
So we're going 3 for 3. Who you got, Spencer?
We're going to go 3 for 3 one more time.
I'm glad we're
Cyclones
all
have won
in
5
sync
straight,
here.
as you said. Hakeem Butler is a great weapon, huge frame. He's going to be good now. He is good now, going to be great at the next level as well. Texas has all but already lost their season pretty much, and their coach might be next. Okay, cool, hook 'em, right? Iowa State has the best defense in the Big 12, in my opinion. And they're going to show it today. Texas is banged up, and so Iowa State gets it done. And they're keeping their Big 12 title game hopes alive by getting the W today.
Okay, so horns down all the way around here in the studio. Moving on to our third and final game for you guys to pick: Arizona versus Washington State. Carly?
I have Washington State. I don't think there's any commentary needed. Arizona is not that great. They're one of the most average teams in the NCAA. That's about all I've got.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, I'm picking Wazoo. Arizona has been bad on the road. They are 1-3 on the road this season. Their only win is in Corvallis against Oregon State, who's trash. And in those road games, they've allowed 491 yards per game. Again, not good. And like you said earlier, Spencer, Gardner Minshew is a freaking dude. I think he's gonna strengthen his Heisman campaign with a great game today.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think he's going to really open up that passing yard leader gap. He's already ahead. I think he's going to make that a lot bigger today. I think that the fact that everyone's betting on Washington State like this makes people think that they're just going to – everyone thinks that Washington State's going to win, and I do think Washington State is going to win. We're going to clean sweep for the 3rd time in a row. Arizona's 5-5 in the worst Power 5 conference. It's like a Subway commercial, 5s everywhere. But the thing is, I think that this game could be trouble for Washington State if they get complacent. Arizona has lost to UCLA this year, and they did lose to Utah by 32. They don't really have much to play for except for a bowl game. They get one more win. They're in a bowl, right? 6 wins get you in. And they're going to put everything they have on the table today, and they're going to go all out. They have a dual-threat quarterback, and they might have a chance to score some points on this Washington State defense that doesn't pride themselves in doing much anyway because they have that offense, that air raid spread offense that just pounds the ball down the field over and over and over again. And Arizona might have a good opportunity to score a lot of points on this team. But I'm going with Minshew. I'm going with Washington State. I just think it might be a lot closer than people think right now.
Okay, well, from those top 3 national picks to something a little more fun, give me your upset pick of the week. Carly, who's upsetting us this week?
Now, don't get me wrong. Don't start yelling. But I picked Duke over Clemson.
What?
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it would be one of the biggest upsets of the season if it did happen. Listen, I get it. Clemson has one of the number 1 defense in the nation, but their offenses aren't much different. Their stats are very similar. Yes, Duke only has a 5% chance of winning, but
and a 95% chance of losing.
Yeah.
So that would
hey,
be an
5%
upset.
is better than 0%.
Clemson
That's
put up
true. Good
77 points a couple weeks ago, and the only time Duke's doing that is with Zion Williamson on the basketball court.
Yeah.
True.
On the basketball court. Okay, Matt, who's your upset?
My upset pick, I'm headed over to the American Conference. Cincinnati over UCF.
That hurts
In the
Spencer's
words-
heart.
Yeah, sorry, Spence. In the words of the late, great Herb Brooks, I am sick and tired of hearing about what a great football team UCF has. They have played nobody. This is going to be their first game this year against a ranked opponent. And they've got, they've got college game day in town, all the lights, all the buzz is around them. I think they get blinded by the lights a little. And you know what? Cincinnati has also put together a great season and has received next to no love in the national conversation, especially when compared with UCF. So I think the Bearcats have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And statistically, here's something I noticed. That Cincinnati ranks number 17 in the nation in rushing. UCF's run defense is number 105.
Wow.
They've allowed over 200 rushing yards per game. And guess what? Cincinnati has some great rushing attackers. I think the Bearcats win.
My upset pick, keeping it short and sweet, Florida State's going to beat Boston College. Boston College is ranked 20th. I don't think they're very good. Florida State needs something to hang their hat on to end the season. They've been abysmal the entire season. Boston College has not beat one ranked team the entire season. Francois has a big game. Florida State takes on Boston College. They get a win to end the year.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. For Spencer, Matt, and Carly, it is time for us to wrap up this episode of Game Day U. Thank you for tuning in all season, and have a great game day.